Space adventure games are constantly being compared to each other, just like me and my brother.
I'm trying my best, Mom!
Even before Starfield's release, it was consistently being judged on its relation to No Man's Sky. While these two have a ton of differences, they share enough common ground to do a fair evaluation. No Man's Sky may be 7 years older than Starfield, but its smaller development team fills me with enough confidence to score them with equal weight. Thankfully, both of these games have been universally adored since the day they were released, so I have nothing to worry about. Before I begin, my name is Dirt, and if you have any angry letters to send to me, my address is the White House. Right out of the gate, we must look at performance. No Man's Sky runs on many more platforms, but looking at only an average PC, there is a pretty clear winner. The loading times in Starfield give you enough time to boil 4 cups of hot water, toss in 2 packets of ramen noodles, wait until all 7 YouTube ads are finished, remember that you left the flavor packets in the water, burn your hooves getting them out, and get the doctor at urgent care to tell you to stop asking if you'll ever be able to play the grand piano again, all before you've been able to land your ship. In No Man's Sky, there's one big loading screen at the beginning and a small sequence when warping to a new star system. That's about it. There are little stutters here and there, and both games have noticeable pop-ins and glitches, but No Man's Sky narrowly wins out in this one. When it comes to storytelling, this one's pretty obvious. What a heartbreaking moment this was. Starfield has an expansive story arc with tons of factions and history, with twists and turns, love and death, burning of bridges, mending of hearts. No Man's Sky has a bunch of words. There's plenty of deep lore and mystery to unravel in both universes, but Starfield clearly puts most of their eggs into the story basket, even though that basket is made out of strips of wet cardboard. But still, that's a point for Bethesda. Graphics are an interesting category here. Both games have them, but they have drastically different priorities. I've been mesmerized by No Man's Sky's inherent beauty on more than one occasion, while in Starfield I occasionally feel like I'm staring at a dark corner of an abandoned Amazon warehouse. But when looking at the whole package and the individual details of every environment and piece of useless garbage, it's gotta go to Starfield. Both of these feel unique when you're moving around. They both have the options for first person or third person, they have many overlapping features, but there's no mistaking one for another. Yes Women's Ground's seamless transition from outside to inside, from on the ground to in a vehicle, from mining to fighting, brings home the trophy for gameplay. Good job. I'm so proud of you. Get yourself a soda pop. Music is a special piece to the puzzle of game development. When used right, it elevates the emotion of the given situation. When used too little, it renders feelings of being in Target on a weekday. Even though Starfield's main score closely resembles Fallout and the Elder Scrolls to the point it has a hard time standing on its own, it still greatly outshines No Man's Sky's delicate background ambiance. Both are beautiful in their own right, but the dynamic changes in music that Starfield maintains always ensures you feel like your actions are affecting the world, even when you're just having a goof. No Man's Sky was never known for its fighting, but since they offer the option, it has to be considered. Starfield has an enormous array of weapons and abilities to help the player fight their enemies in any way they wish. You can go in guns blazing, you can go in guns blazing, or you can go in guns blazing. The variety of combat is instantly evident when compared to No Man's Sky's simplistic multi-tool and vehicular defenses. But regardless of quantity, it's just more satisfying. Experimenting with different space magic spells in combination with ranged or melee weapons is an absolute joy. In a certain other game, I prefer to err on the side of caution. The exploration capabilities of Starfield were tremendously oversold and lacked the true freedom that No Man's Skyers can enjoy. You can go into any building without a loading screen. Granted, these buildings are far less detailed, but you can also enter your ship in an instant, fly out of the atmosphere and enter the great Dyson vacuum of space with the most minuscule of delay. You can actually fly to and land on any planet in sight. Space stations can be entered with a quick animation. Freighters and frigates can be fully explored. You can even explore the inner sanctum of your darkest nightmares. It's just no contest. On the topic of flight, both of these games have put a tremendous amount of effort into their aircrafts. As we saw earlier, Starfield instantly wins in the area of combat, but flying in general is a different gaggle of geese. Starfield's flight systems are restricted to open space, and since fast travel allows for the quick transport to any unlocked location, there's very little purpose for flying after a certain point. It's still enjoyable to sit in the driver's seat and realize that you greatly underprepared for an expedition, but it rarely feels needed. On the other hoof, we have a system where the first and most prominent quest is getting your ship up and running. A system where any ship that flies around can be purchased using imaginary buckets of kisses and then added to your collection. You can't explore the inside of the ships, but I'm not sure I'd want to. The vast array of ship types that truly affect the way it handles and the mere ability to fly above a planet's surface, especially in VR, puts this victory in the hands of Hello Games. The big drawback to No Man's Sky's aircrafts is their customization. What you see is what you get in this universe, and while technical specifications can be improved, you can't get anywhere close to the level of detail-oriented alterations found in Starfield. This is one of the best mechanics in the game, and the possibilities are not only limitless, they are truly frightening. But beyond your ship, you can also customize your face down to the amount of dirt on it. That alone makes it very clear. I don't usually put much thought into fast travel. I'm more of a slow travel kind of pig, but in games as ginormous as these two, it becomes very important. In Starfield, you can use your map to warp over to a previously discovered location, but when traveling to a new area, you must be in your ship and put enough points into the grav drive to speed up the process. This fulfills its purpose and works much like No Man's Sky's galaxy map that relies on the power of your ship and must be activated outside of the atmosphere. Where these two differ is the open teleportation. In No Man's Sky, if you want to fast travel to a space station, a previous base, or to your freighter, too bad! Just kidding, you'll need to find or build a teleporter. Going this route maintains the rationale of the fast travel functionality. It doesn't feel like you instantly materialized in a random location, but rather stepped through a Stargate made of blue raspberry pudding to a predetermined landing zone. It doesn't make much difference in the grand scheme, but the tangible quality of the teleporter really sells it in this neck of the woods. When I first started playing Starfield, I was reminded of what an incurable hoarder I was at heart. Something about the mere availability of loot necessitated my unbiased acquisition. In both games, there are inventory items that can be scavenged, purchased, mined, and created, but in Starfield they are far more plentiful. There are some pieces that don't provide what you'd think they should, like duct tape not providing adhesive, but most everything is valuable in some way, shape, or form.
Best not to leave anything useful behind.
In No Boy's atmosphere, the vast majority of items are elements or chemicals. It does wonders for making you feel like a super smart scientist engaging in genius-level experiments, but the Starfield items stretch way past what you can harvest from the ground or from the air. Pieces like a book about poetry and a weapon that does almost zero damage, it's all worth keeping, even when your backpack weighs more than a hippo that exclusively eats American tourists. Starfield also has Andrea. No Man's Sky does not have Andrea. That's a point for Starfield. Both of these games have a very large amount of planets, especially when compared to a game like Raft, which has only one planet and it's super moist. The two obvious distinctions between them is the amount and accessibility. Starfield has over 1,000 planets, but less than 400 of them can actually be landed on. No Man's Sky has slightly more than that. All of these planets can be explored, but they are, for the most part, much smaller by comparison. The benefit to these planets is their variety. It becomes clearer the longer you play that many planets recycle similar color schemes, foliage, animals, and terrain. It's also worth noting that there's typically only one biome that stretches over the entire surface. Luckily, there's a wide range of potential distinctions. Looking at just a few different planets provides quite a visual feast. In Starfield, there's arguably more to do on these planets depending on the system, but many peripheral planets that aren't critical to the story begin to blend together. Most of them are very pretty to look at, but with so few you can land on and so few ways to traverse, I'm gonna side with No Man's Sky. Base building and settlement management is a big part of the developer's MO. In Solarland, you can make bases on planet surfaces, create living spaces on your ship, and make a nest inside of existing colonies. The actual mechanics for starting this process and editing your builds is kinda sorta awful. No Man's Sky requires far fewer and far simpler materials to realize your vision, which helps you to hit the ground running. It's ever so slightly quicker to jump in and out, and it's comparatively easier to get things to snap in place. Starfield has some tremendous building parts. You can make some high-quality constructions that rival a campaign POI. What holds me back from awarding it a win is the ease of use. Frustration levels alone tell me that it doesn't work the way it should. That's not to say No Man's Sky is perfect, but there's so much more I can create with a lot less time being wasted. In the same vein, the user interface plays a huge role in games like these. Anytime you need to balance inventory, repairs, documentation, and secret compartments filled with lasagna, you rely on a simple UI to help you along. The first time I saw the menus for Starfield, I had one eyebrow stuck to the top of my forehead for 12 minutes. It's simple and elegant, it's got a subdued color scheme and subtle sound effects. In No Man's Sky, it's fine. It's busy, but it gets the job done, I guess. Where it does shine is in its speed and visibility. It never covers the screen to the point where you forget where you are. The mini quick menus stay humbly at the bottom and everything makes sense. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a design where each facet is contained in its own page. But what I found is that with the minimalist nature of the design, I actually know what I'm looking at. It's clean, clear, and under control. Regardless of the situation, it all matches the aesthetic. Even with many updates improving the No Man's Sky UI, it just doesn't function in a way that is as obvious and intuitive. Good job, Starfield, you did it. In both titles, there are hazards to be found. Hostile enemies, dangerous weather, angry soap bubbles, there's plenty of threats to be on the lookout for. In both space environments, enemies can destroy your hopes and dreams when you're not properly prepared. On the surface, however, things are quite different. Starfield has its fair share of dodgy planet conditions, but very few feel like a threat. Because of the limited area of exploration you can reach on foot, you're often staying closer to your ship, which also means closer to safety. Neither game is the pinnacle of brutal survival conditions, but in No Man's Sky the danger is quite real. Toxic storms drastically changed the landscape, and provoked robots never let you forget what you did. Next we have Carl. In these titles, mining is a must. Without it, you'll never finish the first mission, and you'll miss out on essential items like carbon, lead, sugar-free pancakes, all the big ones. In Todd Howard's world, the mining tool is a separate weapon entirely. You have to be pretty close to what you're mining, and it's not always obvious what can be mined and what can't. In No Souls Clouds, if you want to mine something, by golly, you can make it happen. Your basic scanner tells you everything you need to know about what and where to mine. The mining beam component of your always equipped multi-tool is such a basic fixture that it's very rare you'll ever be without it, and it doesn't weigh anything in your inventory, probably because nothing has weight in No Man's Sky. Starfield's mining tool also sounds like it's going to explode at any second. Something I've gotta give to Starfield is the feeling of progression. It's all but essential for an RPG, but it handles the level ups, perks, and skills precisely as it should. You feel like you're not only improving within your understanding of the game, but also upgrading stats constantly, so there's always a new goal. In No Man's Sky, you can upgrade many aspects, your ships and exocrafts, as well as your own suit and personal equipment, but they don't feel quite as permanent and beneficial. Lastly is the most important aspect to any open world game: the photo mode. Something I'm sure everyone uses as much as I do. Both titles have quite the robust camera and allow you to change the angle, field of view, quality of the image, add special effects, and the shots you can capture could be put in museums. Starfield has a few unique features like changing the character's pose, though in No Man's Sky you can simply strike one of the many dynamic gestures right before entering photo mode, but where No Man's Sky really excels is the ease of use. Even after using Starfield's photo mode 100 times, I still forget how to navigate the little menu and change the settings. In the Sky No One Wants, you can click on whatever you want and even move the sun directly to your cursor and change the weather completely. It's a tough call, but it goes to Hello Games. There are many differences between these two games, but comparisons like this mean nothing next to your day-to-day enjoyment of the experience. If you love Starfield, great, go get it. If you love No Man's Sky, wonderful, make it happen. If you are upset by this list, feel free to let me know why I should never be allowed to make another YouTube video in the comments, or tell me why this video gave you the confidence you needed to finally start taking ballroom dance classes. Enjoy your existence, and I'll see you at some point in the future maybe, I don't know, life is chaos.